Welcome to the Undisputed podcast. I'm your host, Jenny Taft. This podcast is the full show from today's episode of Undisputed from start to finish. They've got a busy slate, so skip Shannon. Let's get to it.
Good morning. Welcome to Undisputed. Hope you guys had a great weekend. How are we doing today?
I am doing great. Received word that there's another documentary coming down the pipeline. You know how I became the GOAT, but we'll talk about that, Jenny, at another day, at another time.
That was a lame attempt at humor, and all I gotta say, Jenny, is that, dare I say, Jerry Jones has been Jordan-esque this offseason. Jerry strikes again. Here we go.
Yeah, he's been Jerry Krause this offseason. Jerry Krause, that's the Jerry.
Those are two very different comparisons, and we will get to everything Michael Jordan, of course, what we saw last night. But we do have to start with the Cowboys because they finally came to terms with a quarterback, but his name is not Dak Prescott. Instead, Dallas agreed to a one-year deal with veteran Andy Dalton after he was released from the Bengals. It gives the Cowboys a legitimate backup, but also left some scratching their heads since Dak is still only franchise tagged. So Shannon, how much did this signing have to do with Dak's negotiations right now?
Well, guys, I believe it accomplishes two things. I do believe it gives them the quality backup that they need, that they have not had since Dak took over the starting job and Tony Romo was injured. He came off the injury. And obviously, we know Tony Romo was a starter for a substantial amount of time and had proven. So if something had happened to Dak, they were more than comfortable having Tony Romo go back in, considering that was the direction they really wanted to go in to begin with, Skip. But on the flip side, I do believe it gives them some leverage over Dak because it says, okay, Dak, now we feel very comfortable. This guy's been a starter for a long period of time. He's won the division. He's won 50, Skip. I mean, he won 50 games in his first 5 years. So we know what he's capable of doing. We want you, Dak, but we want you at our number. So I believe it's twofold. It gives them the quarterback that they need as a quality backup that they need. Because, Skip, I believe if something were to happen to Dak, I don't believe personally, I could be wrong, and a lot of other people would be proven wrong if Cooper Rush could come in this with all that pressure and lead the team if something were to happen to Dak for an extended period of time. Andy Dalton has been a starter. I believe Andy Dalton could come in if something were to happen to Dak and keep the ship upright until Dak were to return. But on the big side, Skip, this is a leverage play. This is a leverage play saying, Dak, we feel very comfortable going into the season, playing the season with Andy Dalton if you're unwilling to relent on your contract demands. So this was a message on two folds.
This was advantage Jerry Jones. This was a shocking steal of a deal of a quote-unquote backup quarterback who, as you point out, Shannon, won a whole lot of football games for a bad team in Cincinnati. Andy Dalton is a 3-time Pro Bowler who carried that team to the playoffs with the help of A.J. Green, but he did it 4 times. The Bengals made the playoffs 4 times under Andy Dalton. And all of a sudden, the big D in Dallas is not Big Dak. I think it's Big Dalton. Because Andy Dalton chose the Dallas Cowboys over, I'm going to guess that New England was somehow in the sweepstakes here. I'm going to guess that Jacksonville might have kicked the tires with Gardner Minshew as its starting quarterback. And I'm going to know that Andy Dalton said, I choose Dallas for $3 million base a year. He was scheduled to make $17.7 million this coming year for the Cincinnati Bengals. He's obviously made a lot of money in Cincinnati in pre-contracts. But now Jerry Jones says, I've got the best backup in the league. I've got the best backup that Dallas has ever had since Danny White backed up Roger Staubach. I got a Pro Bowl backup, and I've got an ace in the hole. Because all of a sudden, Jerry, who is winning and owning the offseason, has thrust Dak and his new agent back on their heels. They had Jerry dead to rights because they kept saying, in effect, what are you going to do, Jerry? Play Cooper Rush? You're going to play Cooper Rush? He's completed 1 pass in 3 attempts for 4 yards. Is that what you want to go with next year if we decide to hold out into the season? Is that what you're going to do, Jerry? And now Jerry can say, guess what I'm going to do now? I'm going to play Andy Dalton in games that count if we can't come to terms. And all of a sudden, Dak Prescott has to wonder, wait a second, did I just lose all my leverage? Because remember, Shannon, the franchise tag is placed on Dak right now, but it could be rescinded at any moment. If Jerry thinks this negotiation has gone completely south, if it's deadlocked, impasse, stalemated, it's possible before the July 15th deadline that he just say, okay, we rescind, we give up. You're asking for outrageous, out-of-bounds money, Dak Prescott, and that's what I believe from the start he is asking for, because remember, Jerry's MO, his history is of overpaying players he treats like sons. In this case, this is the first case where he couldn't get this one done because I believe Dak and his new agent are asking for money that's beyond comprehension. It has not been reported. This is what I've been told. I don't know the figure. I just think they're asking for way out of bounds money that even Jerry Jones says that's too rich for my blood. I've got to have some responsibility to my salary cap. And no, Dak, I'm not going to do that for you. I'm not going to go beyond what Patrick Mahomes is about to get from Kansas City. So in the end, now Dak has to wonder, would he yank the tag? That's $31.4 million next year. Is it possible that suddenly he'd say, okay, heck with you, I'll just go with Andy Dalton? Whatever the case, a fire just got lit under Dak Prescott. And I, for one, am loving it because I feel much better about the Dak negotiation now that Jerry has Andy Dalton as his, he's got 2 aces in the hole. That's the equivalent of having a backup and a starting quarterback sitting right there on the fence, ready to jump in if necessary, and it's feeling like it just might be necessary.
Skip, Dak Prescott and his representative looking, Jerry, you do realize that on Andy Dalton's watch, they got the #1 overall draft pick. That happened on Andy Dalton's watch. Skip, I believe Dak Prescott has never embraced Jerry like other superstars, as you mentioned, allowed him to be a father figure to him. Dak has kept Jerry Jones at an arm's distance. He's like, I'm the quarterback, I'm the leader, I'm the face of this franchise. You are the owner. I don't need you to be like Michael Irvin treated you. I don't need you like Dak and so many other of the Cowboys players. I'm my own man. I've come here, I do a job, I'm going to be professional, I'm going to do everything I can to help this team win. But I don't need you. I don't need to pick up the phone and say, Jerry, let's talk. I don't need to pick up the phone and call Steven. Steven, let's get this deal done. I have a representative to do that. And so, and with that being said, Skip, I just believe Dak has always come in and says, I'm going to treat this as a business. I'm not trying to be buddy-buddy. Skip, we know Jerry loves his players. Jerry loves getting close to his players. Hell, Jerry would probably, hey, let's all go out for a drink. Let's have a drink. He sees them somewhere. He's going to send a drink over to them. That's the kind of owner Jerry is. But Dak doesn't want that, Skip. Dak just wants to lead this football team. He just wants to play quarterback and go home. That's what he wants to do. I don't know about all that going home, but Skip, he's never really embraced everything that comes along with being a Cowboy player, which is the love and adoration that the owner Jerry Jones has. That's very unique. Very few owners are willing to go like Jerry and hang and have a good time and go drinking and have a party with those guys. That's not how owners normally work, but that's how Jerry is. For me, if I'm Dak, I'm sticking to my guns. If this is the way you want to play it, you play it that way. But at the end of the day, Skip Bayless, I've never seen, in all my years, I've never seen a quarterback accomplish what Dak has accomplished in his first 4 years and have to threaten to hold out. No quarterback, good, bad, or indifferent, has been able to accomplish what Dak Prescott has accomplished. Won 2 divisions in his first 4 years. He was Rookie of the Year. threw for almost 5,000 yards. He has a playoff win on his resume, something Andy Dalton does not have in 8-9 years on his resume. And you're saying, you're trying to hold me hostage. That's not going to work.
I find this highly amusing that you and a lot of other people I read about and hear from are all of a sudden saying, pay the man. You're treating him with no respect, Jerry. Well, how about you, Shannon Sharp? You have treated Dak Prescott with no respect for 4 years. You have told me that he gets Fs for many of the games he plays, that he's a below average starting quarterback, that he's not the answer in Dallas. And now you're telling me he should get beyond Mahomes money? It's absurd. It's the biggest bunch of baloney I've ever heard spewed on this show.
We don't know what Mahomes is asking for, but Skip, that does not change the fact a $3 million fixer-upper, a 3,000 square foot fixer-upper in Malibu is going to probably cost you $10 million because of location. No matter what you think of Dak as a quarterback, it's position, position, position. He plays the most valuable position in all of pro sports, and he's played it well. I'm not saying he's played it great. There have been occasions in which he's played great. Now he needs to be compensated. He needs to be rewarded for his play. Now, you tell me, Skip, all the time, it's not what Dak has done. The question is, do you believe Dak Prescott can lead you to a Super Bowl? Like you told me, if you believe that's what he is, he should be played. Just like you tell me, if Tua is healthy, he should start. If Dak Prescott can lead you to a Super Bowl anytime within the next 3 to 4 years, pay him $40 million. I'm using your words against you.
So you just referred to Dak Prescott as a fixer-upper in Malibu who would go for maybe $10 million when it's probably like a $3 million house that needs a whole lot of work put into it. And I'll go with your analogy because he is playing in Malibu. He is located in Malibu because he plays for America's team. He is the starting quarterback and face of the franchise for the most popular and is loved and hated team in all of sports. And because of that, he has, to my knowledge, at least 12 national TV commercials, and God knows exactly how much they net him every year, but it would be millions and millions of dollars into his pocket that don't count against the Dallas Cowboys salary cap, and that is gold for Dak Prescott. But you won't allow that into this equation when I've said it from the start. That's part of the deal in Dallas, why you need to take a little bit of a hometown discount to play for America's team so that Jerry and Stephen Jones can surround you with more talent. But not only is he not doing that, Dak Prescott, but he is supremely disappointing me as, dare I say, his biggest fan, because he is already holding out from virtual workouts. He has drawn a line in the sand that he will hold out for whatever comes out of this quarantine period, whether it's some kind of, camp workout or whatever it is, he's not going to be there. There's a new sheriff in town named Mike McCarthy who brought in a little bit of a new offense. They're trying not to change all the terminology, but the starting quarterback needs to be there. Negotiation, holdout or no holdout, or stalemate or no stalemate, you need to be involved. You cannot sacrifice the team for your greed. You cannot sacrifice winning for negotiating. I'm sorry, you can't do it. I'm shocked that Dak Prescott would do this, and so is Jerry Jones, which is why he went and got him an Andy Dalton.
Skip, we see teams sacrifice players all the time. Cam Newton doesn't have a job. Andy Dalton didn't have a job. Jameis Winston didn't have a job. They sacrifice players all the time. But when it comes time, players you need to sacrifice. Why? You never do. You always say what you're doing is in the best interest of the team. It's a business decision. Players are not allowed to be businesses. Only teams and corporations can be business. Well, hell, Dak Prescott says, I'm a business. I'm Dak Inc. Michael Jordan said something last night. He says, I Michael Jordan was the biggest selling point. If I averaged 2 points and 3 rebounds, none of this would have been possible. So y'all make it seem like Gatorade and Hanes and all these companies, I am my biggest selling point. These commercials have nothing to do. If Dak Prescott was throwing for 1,500 yards and they was going 7 and 9, none of this would have been possible. Dak Prescott is the selling point. And don't you ever think that you're not. It's you. It's what your ability is to do on the field and what you've done. Skip Bayless says you don't get paid on what you've done. You get paid on projections on what you're going to do. If they believe Dak is going to take them to the Super Bowl, win them Super Bowl titles, $40 million. Jerry Jones just said 2 years ago, you have no idea the size of the check I would write. Well, Jerry Jones, Dak Prescott is asking you to write a check for the tune of about $160 or $170 million over 4 years.
Why do you keep saying that? You act like there's no salary cap in Dallas. There's the same cap in Dallas there is in Cincinnati and New England and Tampa Bay and San Francisco and name it. They all have the same amount to spend. So you're saying, how big a check would Jerry write? Well, he can only write X big a check. He can't write a bigger check than the Browns can in Cincinnati, the mom and pop organization that is. They can offer the same kind of money if they want to. They got the same cap space.
Skip. He didn't have no problem giving Amari Cooper $20 million a year, making him the highest paid receiver. He had no problem in making Ty Smith, Zach Martin, and Travis Frederick the highest paid at their position at the time of signing. He had no problem giving Tony Romo 2 contracts. The last one made him the highest paid player. DeMarcus Lawrence, the highest paid. He had no problem, Zeke Elliott, writing those checks. It's now. Dak Prescott said, now is my turn. You want me to take less money. You want me to give you a discount. I wish I might. It's not happening, Skip Bayless.
Take
Jerry Jones,
less money from what? You have no idea what you're talking about here. They are asking, I've been told the agent is overplaying his hand. That's the quote I heard from the inside out. And I believe that because Jerry's MO is he gets these done a year ago. This would have been done a long time ago. He's never faced this. He's never had to use a franchise tag on a quarterback because he always got them done. And all of a sudden, he's got a quarterback who is dug in and is saying, remember, what happened after the social distancing problem where there was an alleged party at Dak's house where he had 30-odd people? Jerry and Steven, especially Steven on his radio show, took a little shot at Dak and said that will not happen again because that was the second time because there had been a picture with him working out with some guys arm in arm after the workout session. And what did Dak do? He fired right back by making a statement against Jerry and Steven. He is dug in. They are going to, quote unquote, war here in ways that no one ever has with Jerry Jones. I believe they're asking for money that if we had the exact figure, even you, Shannon Sharp, would say, well, my God, he's won 1 playoff game. He's 1-2 in the postseason. That's just out of bounds money. That's what's happening right now. That's why Andy Dalton is crucial to this mix because he's going to even the playing field between Jerry and Dak and the agent right now. And maybe they will come to their senses and compromise just a little bit to get this deal done before July 15th.
Oh, and Dak Prescott is sitting back looking at his home. He says, hold on. This is the same Jerry Jones that signed Greg Hardy, that signed Tank Johnson, that signed Randy Gregory, Alden Smith. And now you want to lecture me on my behavior? Miss me with that. Skip Bayless. Now, I'm not going to get into what I heard. I'm not going to get into what I heard or where I may not have heard. But I'm going to put it to you like this. They keep throwing out these numbers, $33, $35 million. How much is fully guaranteed? Tell Jerry and Stephen Jones to say how much is fully guaranteed. Carson Wentz got $63 million fully guaranteed. Russell Wilson got about 69. Aaron Rodgers got upwards of 70. How much is fully guaranteed? Miss me with all these numbers because what they're trying to do is that we're going to make him the highest paid, but they won't give you those fully guaranteed numbers, will they, Skip? Now, I'm not talking about the numbers that if you're on the roster at the next year, at the league year, you get $15 million. I'm not talking about the injury protection guarantees. fully guaranteed. I signed my name on the contract. I got 70. I got 80 million coming, like a Matt Ryan deal.
So how about you miss me with all your hypocritical baloney about, are you putting Dak in the same conversation with Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson and all those quarterbacks you love? Now all of a sudden Dak's up there. Is that how it works?
No, Skip.
Yeah, you just want dissension in my locker room. That's what you want.
Skip, I don't want that. Skip, that's not what I want. Skip, you know how this works. Skip, this is how this works. Is that I sign a contract. There's going to be somebody behind me that comes, that plays, that does what I do, that's going to get a bigger contract. Patrick Mahomes is going to get a bigger contract. But there's a possibility that Lamar Jackson will come behind him and get a bigger contract. That's the way it works. You know that, Skip.
Well, I wish Dak would miss me with all this holdout that's shocking to me, because it never works. In fact, quick aside. I started my career out here with the Los Angeles Times. My best friend at that time was a guy just coming up in the agent business named Lee Steinberg. We lived about a block away from each other, and we were best friends, and we were both kind of growing in the business. Lee obviously became the super agent of the 80s and 90s, and he now represents Mahomes and Tua. And what did Lee teach me right away that he learned? Quarterback holdouts are never good for anybody. They never work for either side. It's the one position that needs to go to camp and be there. Holdouts don't work. And yet now Jerry is facing having Dak hold out with a new coach, maybe an abbreviated camp, maybe missing games 1 and 2 the way Emmitt Smith did in 1993 when they lost those 2 games, and obviously didn't have a quality backup for Emmitt Smith. And the point is that even if Dak plays in game 1, what if he just walks in and says, okay, I'm ready to play? Help me out. Will his injury risk go up after that? Yes, it will. He's 64 for 64 in the games he started. He has been incredibly durable so far. But if you miss all of camp, all the OTAs, all of everything, and show up for game 1 or even for game 3, help me out. What is his injury risk? Does it not just go up off the charts? So that's another reason I love that they signed Andy Dalton, because what if Dak, I'm knocking on wood, what if he's at a much higher injury risk in games 3, 4, and 5, and all of a sudden the season is at risk with Cooper Rush starting games? Now you've got a guy who in his first 5 years in Cincinnati went 9-7, 10-6, 11-5, 10-5, and 10-3. Those numbers will work. Do I think that Andy Dalton could win 10 games with this Dallas Cowboy? Yes, I do. I'm happy he fell out of heaven right into Jerry's lap. Jerry pulled it off for $3 million. I don't know how. So now Cooper Rush makes $2.2 million, and Andy Dalton makes $3 million. He's got them both on his roster. Unbelievable. Way to go, Jerry. Advantage you.
And I'm sure Lee also told you the things that rarely, these are supernovas. That happens is the quarterback has to hold out. They normally get their money. They normally get their money years, a year or two in advance. It was only Dak that had to play to the end of his contract. But also, guess what? You said something about injury. There's an injury risk. That injury risk is also there if Dak only signs this 1-year deal. That's why he wants long-term security, because of the very injury risk you just spoke of. Dak Prescott, stand tag. Hey, like Jerry said, when it comes time to play football, Dak will be there. When it comes time to play football in September, Skip, Dak will be there. But come right now in May, June, July, deuces.
Well, all I know is that Andy Dalton is there. He's a Texas born and raised native son, went to TCU right up the street from Jerry World in Fort Worth.
Good.
He lives in Dallas, Texas, so he's already on the scene, ready to go. And way to go, Andy Dalton, because I don't know, I'm starting to turn into a big Andy Dalton fan right now.
Okay, he's still Andy Dalton.
Skip's happy about the Cowboys. I'm happy about the Cowboys.
No mercy.
Hey, Undisputed listeners, time for some exciting news. Fox Sports Digital, the team that produces this podcast, has been nominated for a Webby Award for our coverage of the 2019 FIFA Women's World Cup in Paris. I was there covering the U.S. women's national team's incredible run as repeat champs. C'était vraiment incroyable. It was truly such an amazing opportunity and experience. So many stories I was lucky enough to help tell. If you enjoyed our work, we'd love it if you could visit vote.webbyawards.com. That's vote.webbyawards.com to support our entries. Fox Sports was nominated for Best Overall Social Coverage for our nightly show, Fox Sports World Cup Now, and for a digital feature we produced on Brandi Chastain, who looks back 20 years later on her famous PK that won the 1999 Women's World Cup. Thanks again, Undisputed listeners. We appreciate your voting consideration. And now, back to the show.
No mercy.
Well, last night we got a detailed view into how much Michael Jordan gambled. Before an Eastern Conference Finals game against the Knicks, MJ was seen gambling at a casino the night before, and the Bulls lost that game. It soon became publicly known that Jordan would be gambling thousands of dollars at a time and became a major topic in the sports world. So, Shannon, how much do you believe the gambling controversy had to do with Jordan stepping away from basketball?
It might have some, but I think the biggest thing for me, Skip, is that since he got into the league, Skip, he was never, ever normal again. And he talked about it. He was lying on the couch and he's smoking a cigar. And he said, you know, a lot of people say they want to be Michael Jordan for a day. He said, but that wouldn't be right. He says, you need to be Michael Jordan for a year. And realize, Skip, we talk about this, Skip. Think about this, Skip, for just a second. What we've been going through since the middle of February, where we can't go dine, you can't go to a restaurant, you can't go out and hang out. That's Michael Jordan for almost 40 years. He can't go to the movies with his kids. He's never been able to be normal with his kids. He was never able to be normal. We're complaining about, Skip, we've been shut down for about 2 months. Michael Jordan was shut down for almost 40 years. And it started to wear on him. But what really started to wear on him, Skip, is that as great as he was, he says, I've had no missteps. No one says I came out and assaulted anybody, or I punched somebody in a bar, or I cursed some kid out, or I did something. I didn't do that. But what he found out, Skip, is that no matter how great you are, people will start to look for ways to try to tear you down. And that's what started to happen. Sam Smith he was an investigative reporter. I didn't know that at the time, Skip, until last night, that his background was investigative reporting. And so, Skip, when you're an investigative reporter, you start looking for things. That's normal things that people that's writing a story. Skip, you write a story, Skip, you not try to look, okay, where did he come from? What was his parents? Did anybody do anything shady? Was he ever arrested? Did he hang with a gang? That's not what you do. You write the story, trying to tell a story, but that's not what they did. They started trying to look for things. Michael Jordan was like, man, but I tell you what, Skip, baby, not to change subjects too far, now you should have a greater appreciation for one LeBron James. Michael Jordan grew up in an era where there was no social media. There was really no 24-hour talk shows. There was no debate shows. Everybody did not have an opinion on Michael Jordan. This is what GOAT James has had to deal with. He grew up in a social media era with a constant grind. Because, Skip, you saw what happened going back to that three-peat, trying to get that the pressures and how it started to wear on him. Whoo! And he's like, man, look here. And David Aldridge was telling the story last night. He said, man, if y'all don't be careful, Magic told him, y'all gonna run him out of the game. And that's exactly what I believe happened, Skip. But also what wasn't in that, Skip, did you know when they was down 0-2, they were playing the Knicks in game 3. Did you know, Skip, Michael Jordan went 3 from 18 from the floor and they still won that game? Now let go, James had done that. Now somebody saved Michael Jordan's legacy. Now I don't know who it was, but somebody saved that man's legacy. Skip, I liked last night. Last night was my favorite episode because Michael Jordan was very, very open. He was the most open and honest I've been. I was glad, Skip, he didn't run from the comment that Republicans buy sneakers. Skip, I also believe that he said it in jest. We say a lot of things, Skip, that we might be joking around, but if somebody else heard it and all they heard was you say that, they automatically assumed it, man, did you hear what he said? And it got back. It was But Skip, like he said, I didn't get in this to be activism. And that was not his calling. Skip, I like that Michael said I was just wanted to be a basketball player. But Skip, the most touching, last night when he said, Skip, if he had a chance to do it over again, I'm not so sure I would want to do this. I don't know if I would want to be a role model because I'm already set up for failure. Skip, that broke my heart. This is the most popular man maybe ever. Maybe only Ali and Tiger can rival him. And he says, I don't know, man. He says, I don't know. Wow. Let that sink in. Let that sink in. Skip, here he is, Michael Jordan at the apex, the crescendo. And he says, I don't know, man. He says, because is it worth it?
Are you finished?
I'm finished, Skip.
Okay, all right. Let's get back to Jenny's initial question about how much did gambling have to do with the almost 2 years that he suddenly, shockingly took off in the heart of his prime at ages 30 and 31. Again, I worked in Chicago in 1998. I was there for The Last Dance as the lead columnist of the Chicago Tribune. I saw it from the inside out. I heard all the stories. Sam Smith was a teammate of mine for those years I was in Chicago. And what I continued to hear from people on the inside, and this is in 1998, and by the way, the interview you talked about where he's sitting on his couch with his cigar, that's in a hotel room in 1998. 98. We're talking about 93. After the first three-peat, he suddenly walked away from basketball. How much did gambling have to do with that? I say everything. You could argue that he was getting burned out, as he indicated there in the documentary at that point.
Right.
You can argue that he got burned out from all the negative publicity that ensued after all of his gambling was revealed. But that wasn't from Sam Smith. That wasn't about the Jordan rules. That was just about going to Atlantic City after the first two losses to the Knicks and taking a public beating for that. And as Michael said, he got asked by the league office about that. And his answer was, well, it's legal to go to a casino. I like to play blackjack. And then the book came out, that Richard Esquinas book, you know, Michael and Me, and he alleged in the book, Esquinas did, he's like a professional sort of hustler gambler, that Michael had lost $1.25 million to him on the golf course. This was in 1993 when that was a whole lot of money. And that was a bad look for the league. And it led to questions about, gee, if Michael is gambling so heavily off the course, then what about the people he's associating with, which led to his association with this Slim Bowler, another criminal, a convicted criminal, that he was playing golf with regularly, and it was not reported whether he'd lost or won money. It was just the association with Slim Bowler. Not a good look for the league. And again, David Stern, very unhappy with that image, right? So all this was the fallout. Yeah.
He did lose, remember, because there was a $57,000 check when the feds went looking at Slim Bowler.
He did.
He said it was a loan.
And he said
and then they finally called him to court. Right, and then he finally came to court, and he actually had to say what it was for. It was a gambling debt I had lost, and I had to pay it off.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So it looked a little shady that you're losing money to professional gamblers, which could indicate you could get yourself in a bind when they came back to you and said, hey, if you'd shave a few points tonight, I'll relieve your debt. I'll forgive your debt, right? You don't have to pay me back. If you'll just make sure, bring in the game under 10 points tonight, which is the point spread, then we're good. You know, we're even if you can do that for me. And that was the speculation of the time. Gee, would Michael be, could he possibly fall prey to that? Could he be susceptible to that kind of thinking? And nothing was ever proven. Nothing was ever even alleged about that. But that was the league's fear at that point.
Right.
And Michael got sick and tired of having to answer questions about it. So even going into those finals, remember, he did that sit down that he requested with Ahmad Rashad, who was his probably his best friend in the world. Ahmad Rashad obviously played your game, played pro football for a while, and Michael really loved him and sort of honored him. Yes, he was Bobby Moore for a while. Then he was Ahmad Rashad, if you remember. So, right. So the point was that he did a sit down with Ahmad before the finals started against Barkley's Phoenix Suns. And he wanted to answer all the gambling questions one more time. And Ahmad said in the documentary, well, he did wear sunglasses, which Ahmad didn't love because it looked like he was trying to hide his eyes behind the sunglasses. So the point was, what I always heard in my year in Chicago around the 98 Bulls was that it had a lot to do with gambling, that even the appearance of it got so bad that David Stern, who has denied this repeatedly, even in the documentary, David Stern said it never reached epic crisis levels, his gambling. I just think it was so bad image-wise that he encouraged Michael to step away. And maybe Michael was burned out. Maybe he needed to recharge his engine a little bit by going to try to play baseball. But suddenly he's playing double-A baseball at age 30 in the heart of his prime. To this day, I can't wrap my head around it that he just decided to take a long break from basketball that was almost 2 years. Because remember, he only played 17 games 2 years later. He came back in later March. And they were at one point in March, the Bulls were 31-31. So they were really struggling 2 years after, and he finally came back just in time to sort of get ready for those playoffs when they finally lost to the Magic, as you recall. But he gave up 2 prime years of his career, one to play baseball, and again, he hit .202 for the Birmingham Bulls, who happened to be part of the White Sox, owned by his Bulls owner, Jerry Reinsdorf. But he hit .202, he hit 3 home runs, and that's in 436 at-bats. He did drive in 51 runs, which is not bad. He stole 30 bases, which is not bad. But again, was he a baseball player? No, he wasn't a baseball player. He was good enough to be respectable at AA, but that's all. And the point was, Shannon, the Michael I got to know in Chicago, his fire raged so hot that he just couldn't stop competing. He said, I have a competition problem, not a gambling problem.
Correct.
And
yes.
He wanted to gamble at everything, especially golf.
Yes.
And again, I've walked with Michael during rounds of golf. Trust me on this. He's very good, but he's not great. He's not going, he never had any shot at playing professional golf. He looked like he could shoot 75 or 78 to me. You know, he'd be like a 5 or 6 handicap. Yeah, I know. But he was on a good day. He could have his moments. I'm sure playing for a lot of money, maybe occasionally he could shoot par. But in general, he was just a pretty good golfer. But I've always told you, and I'm sure your big brother has told you, golf is the hardest game in the world to play. There's nothing like the challenge of golf because the ball doesn't move until you move. You don't pass the ball. You don't catch the ball. There's no reacting like catch and shoot it. You have to think it all through before it even happens. You can't play defense. You can't say, well, he was just better than me today because I couldn't guard him. It's such a hard game, and it comes and it goes and it comes and it goes. So he got addicted to gambling at golf. And then he got addicted to gambling at cards. And he got addicted to gambling, as you saw in the documentary, with his security guy. What was his name? John Michael Wozniak. He passed away last January, Michael Wozniak did. But the point was they're flipping quarters against the wall, and we saw Jordan lose at that. And I think he lost a lot at flipping quarters, golf, and cards. Yes. He never lost at basketball when it mattered, but when it came to those games, I think his addiction started getting to him where he couldn't stop, and then he couldn't stop losing, and he would double down and triple down. And the point was, he was still playing at a supremely high level in basketball. Because I remind you, Shannon, despite all the controversy from the gambling, guess what he did against Barkley's Suns in that 93 finals? He averaged 41, 9 rebounds, and 6 assists. 41, 9, and 6. Wow. Well, that's tremendous. Yeah. You could argue it was the best numbers he ever put up in a finals. And then you're telling me he's just going to walk away from that? He's going to effectively just quit basketball for a while? I don't buy it. I think there is something operating much deeper than that. I don't think we're going to get to it in the documentary because obviously it's Michael's documentary. He's got editorial control over it. So, no, he's not going to go there. But I appreciated the fact that they touched all the right bases on the gambling. They didn't run from it. They didn't ignore it. Right. They laid it out there for you, and then you draw your own conclusions. And mine is that gambling did play some big part in him being forced or at least encouraged to take a sabbatical after the 93 season.
Skip, the thing is for what golf and what my brother's teaching me has taught me about the game of golf is that, and he plays it all the time. He's hitting, he's chipping, he's putting, he's doing all these things. He said the difference between golf and other sports, you get to play against the guy. He said, but in golf, you playing against the course. And see, that's what Michael Jordan runs afoul, Skip. He's like, when Charles Barkley won the MVP, he said, okay, you gave him that, I'm about to get this. I can play against you, Charles. You're not playing against the basketball court. You're playing against Charles Barkley. Okay, you gave Mailman my MVP. I'm playing against him. I'm going to get it back. You see, Skip, the thing is, like when you go to Vegas, you have a winning hand. Vegas knows if they can just keep you there long enough, the tide will swing, and they'll get all they lost back to you and all you brought in. They'll get all of it back, and that's what happened to Jordan, Skip. He was starting to lose at quarters, and he just couldn't walk away, Skip. He's like, okay, well, I give you 4 cracks to be my one. You see, he just can't help it. He did. Skip, 4 quarters is a game that I played in 4-H. We played as kids, pitching pennies, pitching nickels, closest to the wall to win. That's how competitive he was, Skip. As an athlete, I think it was Will Perdue was telling the story. Now, the big dogs were in the back of the plane. They're probably playing Guts or Boo Ray, and people at home, hopefully you know what that is. I don't have time to explain it to you. He said, but he and B.J. Armstrong and John Paxton, they're playing up front, and they're playing blackjack for $1 hand. And Michael comes up there and says, well, can I play? And Pax asks him, like, well, Michael, why would you want to play with us? He says, because I want your money in my pocket. You see, Skip, and I tell you all the time, when you're an athlete, Skip, we make money. You don't really gamble to try to make money. I didn't want the guys' money because everybody was making money. I wanted their pride. I wanted you to go to the bank and get me $10,000 worth of nickels. And when they ask you, why are you getting $10,000 worth of nickels, I wanted you to say, because I lost the bet to Shannon Sharp. That's what Michael wanted. Skip, what do you want with $1 from John Paxton or B.J. Armstrong? He wanted the fact that they knew that he knew he had took $1 from them. That's what it meant to him.
Okay, so the fire that raged in him on the basketball court and took him to heights we've never, ever seen before on the basketball court could get him in trouble off the court in games he wasn't great at. That's what started happening because his basketball got greater and greater. And we saw the Dream Team story of that one practice game that they played, an intra-squad game in which it started getting hot and heavy, and it was Magic and Bird on one side and Jordan on the other, and Magic starts trash-talking Michael, and they're up 8, he said, Magic said, and all of a sudden he's challenging Michael more and more, saying, we're going to run you out of the gym if you don't start playing like Jordan, like Mike. And all of a sudden he did, and he took the game over, and they'd never seen anything like it. And all those players have said that was the greatest basketball contest any had been a part of because it's all the greatest players ever on the same court at the same time. Well, Michael could dominate that. That's basketball. He could dominate that. And if you wanted to play for money, he'd play you for money there. But once he started playing golf for money with professional gamblers, I believe he did get into some trouble. And I do believe that in the end, it cost him a couple of years. And I'm going to throw one last point at you, Shannon. Remember, he did lose his father. His father was murdered on July 23rd of 1993. So after that Phoenix Finals, 41-9-6, soon after, James, his father, the story was that he was driving the car, the Lexus that Michael had bought him, and it had license plates of UNC 0023, and a couple of kids are behind him on the highway. He pulls over to take a nap. This is the story. And they intended just to steal the car, and they wound up pulling the trigger on him and killing him. That's the story. It was a very controversial trial. Both went to prison for life. The two teenagers did. I don't know what happened. There's a lot of speculation that there was a deeper story that was going on there. So maybe that played into it. Maybe Michael needed to, obviously, to grieve the loss of the father that was so close to him. But a lot of things were operating under the surface there for Michael when he finally said, okay, I'm going to Birmingham to play baseball for the Bulls, the Birmingham Bulls.
It was the Barons, Skip. I think it was the Barons. I think it's the Durham Bulls and the Birmingham Barons. But Skip,
I think
the
they
thing,
were. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
The Barons. Skip, I think what happened, to try to make this quick, Skip, I think what Michael did is that you're bringing people to gamble. That's money I can get. Well, I don't care who they are, what they do. Skip, I don't believe Michael Jordan asked who they were. They had money, he wanted to take it. Skip, if you notice, that's how drug people get brought down. They have a specific group that they sell to, and it's always the one, oh man, he good, somebody vouches for him, and it be an informant. He gets inside, and he ends up toppling the whole thing. And that's kind of probably what happened. Those guys had money on the golf course. Michael's like, oh, you got money? You got 50, 100K? Okay, let's go. He wasn't even thinking, man, hey, bro, what you do? Why you got that kind of money? But that's not what he did. He didn't check, and then that's what happened.
Yeah.
A fascinating look at just how competitive MJ was in all areas of his life. I think, Shannon, you said it was your favorite 2 episodes because there was so much there, and we're just getting started and diving deeper about Michael Jordan and The Last Dance. We've got more for you guys next.
No mercy.
Well, it's been known that Michael Jordan once said Republicans buy sneakers too when asked why he wouldn't get into politics, specifically when Harvey Gantt, an African-American Democratic candidate, was running for senator of North Carolina. During The Last Dance, MJ said the quote was accurate, but it was an off-the-cuff remark to a teammate that people took and ran with. So, Shannon, I start with you. Your reaction to Jordan refusing to endorse the African-American candidate in the 1990 North Carolina Senate race.
Skip, I'm not surprised because at the time Michael was at the apex, and the thing that separated Michael from anybody else, there was no blemishes up until that point on his resume. Now, people looked at the gambling, you might say the gambling, but he had really said nothing offensive. He had really done nothing offensive. And people were like, well, people gamble all the time. So he was never involved in no really, Skip, what we would call true controversy. Now, I was surprised given the fact that I know who Jesse Helms was. Skip, I'm from the South. Just like I knew who Herman Talmadge was, who represented the state of Georgia. I knew who Robert Byrd was, who represented West Virginia. I get all that. I know all about those senators and what they represented. Now, Jesse Helms, Skip, was the guy that voted every time it came up that Dr. King was not going to have a national holiday. He also kept voting against the National Black History Museum that later got erected, I think, about 4 years ago, Skip. He voted against that. He was a segregationist. He made no apologies for it. He made it abundantly clear. And after he won, what did he say, Skip? There will be no celebrations in Mudville. That was the guy.
He did.
And Michael said, like, well, you know what, guys, I'm not a political activist. He said Ali was born to do that. That's what Ali wanted to do, Skip. And that comment, Skip, Michael Jordan said something very, very interesting last night. Now, I don't know his type of relationship, but he believes Horace Grant. He said there was only like 3 people around there when I said it. He said Scotty, me, he said Horace Grant. He said Horace Grant said, Skip, remember what I told you? I said, if you say something and a friend or a family member, who do you think gonna say that, Skip Bayless? They're gonna automatically attribute it, be it true or untrue. He believed Horace said that. Now, I don't know the extent of their relationship now, Skip, but it's hard for me to believe because Michael Jordan, what I'm starting to see, Skip Bayless, if Michael Jordan ever disliked you, ain't no coming back from that. He said Isaiah was the second best point guard. He said the best point guard in the NBA was Magic Johnson. The second best is Isaiah. He said, Skip, I still hate him. No matter the hatred I have for him, he's still the second best point guard of all time, which means Isaiah should have been on that team. But Skip, if that's not, if a political activism, if that's not in your heart, Skip, don't do it. Don't front. And And he said something else, Skip. No matter what he does, it was not going to be good enough. I look at these entertainers, Skip, and they're trying to raise money for hunger and try to raise money for COVID. And everybody said, that's all they gave? $1 million, $5 million? Man, they worth $1 billion. They should have gave it. It was never going to be enough. Michael was like, it was never going to be enough no matter what I did. He said, but I did make a contribution to the campaign, like I've done. And even now, Michael has taken a more active role, Skip, in not politics, but active causes, worthy causes that he deemed necessary. He's put his name on some stuff. But for me, Skip, at the time, I was very disappointed. But as I look back at it, Skip, and hear his side of and hear him explain it, Skip, I don't have a problem with it. Do I wish he would have? Yes. But I can't fault that man because that wasn't what was in that man's heart. And I only want you to do what's in your heart.
So you heard Michael last night just straight out condemn Horace Grant for the Jordan rules by Sam Smith. He thought that Horace was the source, and Horace was close, as Horace admitted, to Sam Smith. I also think that a whole lot of the Jordan rules information came from Jerry Krause and Jerry Reinsdorf, and a good part of it from Phil Jackson. Don't discount how much Phil had to do with contributing to that book, to the information of Sam Smith for the book, and then basically saying, don't blame me. I don't have anything to do with this. Now, let's get to the point at hand. I have told you many, many times on this show that when it comes to political statements or taking stands on social injustice, LeBron James has been far more of a fearless force than Jordan ever thought about being, because he didn't much think about being. So if you want to talk about that realm, that off-the-court realm, then LeBron is the GOAT and Jordan is the lowercase GOAT, because he's just way down here. He's to be blamed for it. But I don't condemn him because, to your point, Shannon, his mom asked him to do a PSA, public service announcement, for Harvey Gantt, African-American Democrat running against Jesse Helms in North Carolina for the senator spot. And he said to his mom, I can't speak to something I don't know about. So he said, I can't come out of pocket. And it made it sound like he was doing it. It was all about the money. It wasn't about the money. It was about, it was just a figure of speech about, I just don't know enough. I'm not going to put my reputation on the line for a guy I don't even know. I don't understand any of this. As he said, I've never been a political activist. I always thought of myself as a basketball player. I'm not condemning that, because the Michael I knew in Chicago, he was just a basketball player. He loved his basketball. He loved some of his nightlife, and he really loved his golf and his card playing and his quarter flipping. That's what he loved the most outside of basketball. So in the end, he didn't spend any time trying to read up on politics. You love politics. I don't. So you study politics all day long, and I study sports all day long. That's all. I'm obsessed with sports and how they work, what makes people tick. And you're just as obsessed with politics. What makes people tick? What's this guy really stand for, and what is that guy trying to front to stand for? Well, again, Michael didn't give any thought to that, so he told his mom, I'll contribute to his campaign. And he said, I contributed. I don't know how much he gave, but there's probably a limit, $1,000. I don't know. But he said he did contribute. Well, so when it came to insight and eloquence on anything outside of basketball, I got to tell you, Shannon, I interviewed Michael. I didn't get a sense that he had a lot of insight or eloquence on life matters. So LeBron does. Those are LeBron's strengths. In fact, I feel like LeBron's just as strong in those areas as he is in his basketball IQ. So I appreciate LeBron for that. I applaud LeBron for that. I don't think he's the GOAT, but that's a whole nother issue. We're talking about activism. We're talking about crusading for social or against social injustice. LeBron's at the top of my list with Ali. They're 1-2. You know, Ali obviously put his whole career and life on the line to campaign, to take a stand. And again, Michael complimented Ali in the documentary. He did not bring up LeBron, but I am. And yet, in the end, I like that quote at the end. That this is from Michael in the documentary, Shannon, where he said that I set examples. If that inspires you, great. And if it doesn't, then maybe I'm not the person you should be following. Well, he's just saying, basically, I am not a role model, like the Nike commercial featuring Charles Barkley. Michael never said I'm a role model. It was all be like Mike, but that's like Mike, the basketball player. Off the court, I've told you from the start, you know what he's about. He's no angel, man. There's not a lot of role model going on off the court from Michael Jordan. I'm sorry. Greatest player ever to me in any sport. Off the court, not so much, man. Not a whole lot to love about it. So to me, go ahead.
No, I was saying, Skip, and you're getting a glimpse of how he actually talks, because he's dropping curse words and he this and that, and and Skip, look, the man's human, and I think sometimes, Skip, we get this false perception because you can do something extremely well. That person doesn't curse, he doesn't say anything. They're human. They have emotions. But Skip, and I think the thing is that if you're from the South and you're fairly educated, and Mike's educated, you knew, Skip, from that South, from Byrd, from West Virginia, all the way down to Jesse Helms, to Strom Thurmond, to Herman Talmadge. Skip, you knew what they were doing to blacks. And that's what I think, that's what made people so upset, with especially the blacks. But Dr. Boyd, who's a professor at USC, he says they will let certain blacks, Michael Jordan, Oprah. But just remember now, hey, this is the lane. Don't get outside of here. And if you think about it, Skip, Mike didn't have any missteps. There was nothing controversial. Okay, you want to say gambling, but he didn't take a stand. You do know Rodney King happened. Michael Jordan was in the league. Hey. So Michael made it a point to not get because he was building that brand. And anything that might have deterred or put a dent into that brand, he wasn't willing to accept that, Skip. But at the end of the day, that wasn't in Michael's heart. I can't get mad at a man for what's not in his heart. If that wasn't in his heart, don't do it, because you'll get exposed.
Okay. Thank you. And finally, I thought it was significant that Michael, having editorial control over his documentary, allowed the Obama footage to be used, in which our former President Obama said of Michael, I wished he had pushed harder in that era about Harvey Gantt, that he wished he had pushed harder at that point, because as Obama said, I was coming up as a civil rights lawyer at that point, and I looked up to Michael and I needed him to say something, and he didn't say something. So at least Michael co-signed on allowing Obama to gently criticize him, because Michael's saying, well, gee, I wish I'd been able to, but it just wasn't in me. So I'm with you, not condemning him for it.
And now that you mentioned that, Skip, that was President Obama that said that. He said that America will allow it will allow a Michael Jordan. It will allow an Oprah Winfrey. It will allow, to a certain extent, a Barack Obama. But you remember, that was a lot of criticism of President Obama with his 8 years in office. Well, President Obama, you ain't really doing a whole lot for the black, but President Obama says, I'm president of America, not just president of black America, but now going back, he's like, well, I probably could have. I'm sure President Obama probably lays there and says, I wish I could have done more, or maybe I should have. But he made it crystal clear. There's a place in society, American society, for black to rise up. But just know, you got a lane, stay in it.
All right, guys, I want to go back to the competitive side of MJ and actually compare him to Tom Brady. Is Tom just as competitive as Michael Jordan? We debate that.
No mercy.
Former Patriots receiver Dante Stallworth said that Tom Brady gets so fired up before games, he will start headbutting teammates. He also said that Brady is just as competitive as Michael Jordan is, famously known for being. So, Shannon, does Brady belong in the same sentence as Michael Jordan when it comes to competitive drive?
No, it's not even close. For the simple fact that, Skip, Michael was playing in the 80s and 90s. Skip, like you said, they play football, and he's talking trash. He's telling guys before the game, I'm going to drop 50 on you. I'm going to drop 40 on you. Oh, I'm going to give it to him. I mean, let that sink in for a second, Skip. When they're tackling, I mean, the Knicks, the Heat, the Pacers, Skip, that wasn't basketball. That was football in gym shorts. That's what they were playing, because they were snatching people out the air. They were doing all this crazy stuff. You see, the difference is, Skip, Tom Brady wouldn't have been cursing across the field at defensive players in the 80s and 90s. You know that. You cover the league, Dad. Can you imagine, Skip Bayless, Tom Brady cursing LT, Tom Brady cursing Derek Thomas or Bruce Smith from across the field, saying, you know what, we're going to do this to you. Can you imagine that? No, you cannot, because there was a different type of a ball. It was a different type of ball game back then, Skip. Look, they tried to knock everybody out the game. Your best player his head always had to be on a swivel, because they were looking to get cheap shots whatever they could. And like some of the things that they did in the NBA, Skip, those are flagrant fouls. You're missing 5 games. If Kevin McHale, like he snatched Kurt Rambis out the sky, Skip, how many game suspension do you think Adam Silver will levy on a player in a playoff game if he were to snatch somebody out the sky? Or Robert Parrish, what he did to Bill Laimbeer, going up for a rebound and just start wailing on him. You could do that back then, but not now. Tom Brady could have that type of, you know what, from across the field when the rules are being implemented to heavily protect him. Skip, Mike is on a different level. But most competitors, Skip, you get to a professional level, you're competitive. The greater the competitor, the greater the player is, the more competitive that he is. Skip, John Elway invited Bubby Brister, Bubby, who was the backup quarterback for a year. Well, he was a backup for 1 year. He was a little bit of a starter the next year. But he invited John, had just got a pool table. Bubby goes over. He beats John in pool on his table like 3 or 4 times. You know what John did to the pool table? He got it up out his house. I ain't finna have no pool table. John and I, we weren't on special teams, so we would play the video game of a Jeopardy. Skip, I would know the answer. He's like, if you don't tell me the answer, I'm not throwing you any passes. Skip, he wanted to win at everything. We're playing cards in the training camp. He comes, I'm like, bro, why you here? You making all this money. You got 15 car dealerships. We struggling, and you in here trying to take our money. Skip, that's just how he was. So the greater the player, yes, they're competitive. Do I believe Brady is competitive? Absolutely. But I think the difference is, Skip, is that you look at, oh, golly gee whiz, Tom, and you don't realize that there's a towering inferno that rages inside of him. 1, they took me in the 6th round. 2, they still don't believe I belong here. They think it's fluky what I'm doing, what I'm going to show you. And so, Skip, for me, I don't know if we'll ever see anybody like Jordan, because, Skip, you know Jordan. There's not one thing. You can't do anything with that man without putting money on the table. I'm talking about anything. I bet you the sun gonna come up tomorrow. I bet it don't. Bet 50 grand. That's how he rolls, Skip. I mean, like, dude, the first time I met him, Skip, I'm like, bruh. He tried to look, man, we playing cards at such and such. You want to come up? I'm like, no. You not finna get my house. I'm not finna go over there and play with you. Bro, I just want to say, hey, it's nice to meet you again. Good to see you. Hey, yada, yada, yada. Good luck the rest of the year. But I'm not playing with you, Skip. But that's how it is, Skip. That's what rages inside of people. That's what makes athletes great. The more competitive you are, normally the greater player you are.
Okay, I completely disagree with your complete premise of this, because Tom Brady absolutely belongs in the same sentence with Michael Jordan when it comes to competitive fire. The problem with this debate is that it's hard to even envision Tom Brady in the same sentence in any way, shape, or form with Michael Jordan when it comes to athleticism or swagger or cool or whatever all that is Michael Jordan, the essence of the GOAT. Tom Brady is the GOAT of the National Football League. But when you look at Tom Brady, you tend to see him as what you just described. Golly gee whiz, dad next door in the upscale white suburb. That's that guy. And that's the guy who posts these silly, lame bits on social media. And you say, well, what are you doing? That's not cool. Right. That's beneath you, Tom. You're the GOAT. Michael Jordan would have never posted those silly little bits on Instagram. And yet, you think of Brady, the greatest quarterback. Wait a second. He ran the ugliest, the most embarrassing 40-yard dash in the history of the combine. And it boggles your mind to even put Brady again in the same breath with Michael Jordan. But now we get back to the Dante Stallworth quotes. And what was he saying? That he was warned in his first year with the Patriots, be careful in the tunnel before introductions on game one, because he's going to headbutt you. And Stallworth's like, okay, so he's going to, what? He can't headbutt me. I'm a receiver. And he said then he comes up to him and he thought, oh, bleep, he's about to really headbutt me. And he nearly knocked his head off with a headbutt. It's what I call Psycho Tom. It's the classic case of Dr. Jekyll lives next door. He's the nice man next door. Mr. Hyde, the monster, goes to the games on Sunday, and he will headbutt everybody fiercely, psychically. And then, as Dante Stallworth said, that he was shocked in big games against Baltimore that Brady would trade shots with Ray Lewis and Terrell Suggs, trash-talking shots. Would they be clever or cool or F-bomby or whatever? No, but he would stand up to them. I don't know that he would initiate, to your point, but he would fire back at them across the ball. He would call them out. He would go out of his mind and out of his body because that's the way he performs. He goes somewhere else in competitive fire that I never see during the week in any media session. And yet, all that rage inside him, it equals Jordan's, because I've told you, he's not more clutch than Jordan, but he's been clutch more than Jordan had an opportunity to be, because Tom did it 6 times with 6 game-winning drives in the fourth quarter of Super Bowls, pulled off another one against Eli in the first Eli Super Bowl that got canceled because Belichick's defense couldn't stop Eli from going 80 yards for a touchdown with 2 minutes left. And then, obviously, Brady throws for a playoff record 505 against Philadelphia and rings up 33 points. That's not enough because Belichick's defense, without Malcolm Butler, gives up 41 to the backup quarterback of the Eagles. So there's possibly 8 rings in which Brady played at extremely high Jordan-esque levels. But to me, it's because of that fire that raged in him that was equal to Jordan's fire. It just came out a little bit differently. And yet in leadership and clutch play, man, he's right there with Jordan to me. So yes, to me, I can put them in the same breath, even though Tom Brady does not look or act the part.
Let me ask you a question, Skip. How many times you think Joe Montana, who's the best quarterback in the 80s? Let's go say, we're going to say Elway, Montana, Marino. We believe Montana will probably get the nod because he won 4 Super Bowls. How many of those guys you think trash talk LT?
None of them.
Why? Because they know they were not protected like they are now. See, you can do all that, Skip. I used to go to the zoo. I bang on the enclosures. I know you weren't supposed to, but okay, I did it a couple times. The big old silverbacks, what they gonna do to me? You behind 5 inches of thick glass. I see the lions and all those dangerous animals. I can yell and do whatever I want. There's no chance for you to get to me. But in the 80s, in the 90s, when the quarterback was not protected, trust me, I was on the field. Those quarterbacks were doing no chirping, 0 chirping. Wide receivers was very hesitant to do any talking because, Skip, there was no defenseless receiver. There was none of that. There was no helmet-to-helmet contact. They were trying to put that helmet under your chin. They were trying to take you out. So now in 2007, the rules have been changed. You can't be as physical. There is the defenseless receiver. You can only hit the quarterback in the chest. You used to be able to hit the quarterback from the top of his head to the bottom of his feet. And if his feet was up in there, you could hit him again. But now, all of a sudden, Skip, imagine when you saw what it was like in the 90s. And Jordan out there in everybody's face, from Xavier McDaniels to Oak to Reggie Miller, it did not matter. They were snatching him out the sky, pulling him down, and all he was doing was just getting up and taking it. Yeah, but I'm still going to put this 40 spot on you. Yeah, you got 50 coming. Skip, the man dropped 55. The man dropped 63 on Dennis Johnson. Dennis Johnson was an all-NBA defender, one of the top defensive guards of all time. He was Finals MVP. People don't realize because DJ was back, started with the Supersonics, Skip. But you remember some of the things that he was doing to guys. You like, huh? How you do that? Sidney Moncrief, a two-time Defensive Player of the Year. He did that. Alvin Robertson, cooking. Skip, he was a different animal when it comes to competitiveness. And it didn't stop. I don't know if Tom is as competitive off the field, but I get it, Skip, when you look at somebody, because a lot of times perception has a lot to do with it, Skip. And that's what I think when Michael says, Skip, some people going to have a different take on me when they see this, because all they've ever seen was the button-up Mike. And so now they get to see a different Mike. It's kind of like Tom. You see him with the Tom Ford suits on. He's with his daughter, Vivian, throwing up leaves in the backyard. He's like, competitive? Man, that dude ain't competitive. And he takes you for a loop when you hear he up there headbutting people like offensive and defensive linemen do to get themselves ready to go.
So it sounds like The Last Dance has convinced you once and for all that Michael Jordan is the GOAT, because you're describing GOAT to me. Right?
Oh, my God. Skip, see, there you go. All I said was the man was ultra competitive. He is. But you and I knew, Skip, the thing is, with you and I, when we talk, we know what Jordan was. That's for the people that were too young to remember. And plus some of the things off the court that if you have never been around him. But if you've been around him, nothing that Mike is saying surprised you. You haven't heard one thing that Mike said that surprised you, and you know it.
Okay. Last quick point about Brady. Under today's rules, you could still take Brady out of the game if you so chose to do. It's going to cost you 15 yards and maybe ejection. But if you really wanted to get even with him for trash talk, you could take him out today. It's still football.
Nah, not the rules. Not the rules, because you can't hit him below the knee. You can't hit him in his head. But like I said, when I came into the league in the 90s, where everything went, there wasn't no talking. There wasn't no trash talking going on, Jenny. Not from the quarterbacks. Now, receivers, we still getting into it with the wide receivers.
No mercy.
The Cowboys have agreed to a one-year deal with Andy Dalton after he was released from the Bengals. It gives the Cowboys a legitimate backup quarterback, but also left some scratching their heads since Dak is still only franchise tag. So, Skip, your opinion. What's the biggest reason Jerry Jones signed Andy Dalton?
Jerry Jones just said checkmate to Dak and his agent. Jerry Jones just said touche. Leverage is now mine. I'm now winning this negotiation, because for all those months that this deal should have gotten done, Dak and his new agent knew they had Jerry over the proverbial barrel. It's the Cooper Rush barrel. Cooper Rush had thrown 3 passes in real games and completed 1 for 4 yards. And they knew that they could push Jerry up against the wall, back into the corner, and say, hey, we dare you, play Cooper Rush in the games that count if we decide to hold out because you won't give us what we're asking for. Shannon Sharp, I've told you from the start, my sources say they're asking for outrageous, out-of-bounds money that even Dak, as much as I believe in Dak Prescott, will not be able to live up to. The kind of money that will wreck the Cowboys' salary cap for the next 5 years if Dak can't live up to being beyond Patrick Mahomes, and even I don't think he can do that. So what did Jerry do? He pulled off a shocking steal of a deal. He went and got the quarterback that everybody thought was ticketed for Belichick in New England, that by today I thought we'd be talking about, and this is what you predicted last week. Oh, Belichick, the genius. He waited him out in Cincinnati. He didn't have to trade squat. He didn't even have to give up a 7th-round pick for Andy Dalton. He waited until they had to cut him. And then they got Andy Dalton on the cheap. No, wait a second. Not like Jerry did. Jerry signed Andy Dalton, a 3-time Pro Bowler who took his Cincinnati teams to playoffs 4 times. He signed him to a $3 million base that with incentives maxed out will get only to $7 million. All of a sudden, you've got a guy homegrown in the state of Texas who went to TCU, which is just a few miles away from Jerry World in Fort Worth, who now lives in Dallas. Great guy. You got the best backup quarterback in the NFL, number one. You got the best backup Dallas has had since Danny White backed up Roger Staubach, number 2. But most important, you've got all-time leverage because you now have a proven starter as viable replacement for Dak Prescott if, in fact, he holds out all the way through camp and into the regular season, which I believe is a now distinct possibility. Shannon, I've told you, this thing has gone completely south to the point I believe that Dak and his new agent have alienated Jerry Jones, and that is hard to do. It takes a long time. Jerry's MO is to overpay players he treats like sons. I agree with your premise, Shannon, that Dak has always kept that Heisman pose arm's length from Jerry. And it works in the locker room because players look up to Dak like, you're not Jerry's guy, right? You're not his son. You're your own man. Okay? It worked that way, but it's not working now because I've told you from the start, the way to play Jerry and to get your money is to just cozy up to him. Give him a call. Say, Jerry, I love you, man. Let's get this thing done. That's how Zeke got his deal done just ahead of the start of the regular season when he came back from Cabo. That's the way all the deals get done. That's the way Jerry has overpaid star after star after star. There are about 5 of them on the Cowboys right now who all got overpaid because they played nice with Jerry Jones. Dak is not playing nice. Dak is already holding out from virtual workouts. Dak is going to hold out from whatever OTAs in camp there will be. Jerry is clearly not happy. And if you push him too far and he gets sick and tired enough, he might just rescind that franchise tag before you have to sign it on July 15th. It's possible he would just say, okay, heck with you. We'll go forward with Andy Dalton. Andy is only 32 years of age, and look at these records in his first 5 years, Shannon. 9-7. He's in Cincinnati. 9-7, 10-6, 11-5, 10-5, 10-3. That'll work. Could he win 10 games with this year's cap? You better believe he could. Do I like Andy Dalton more than I do not? I just love the fact that Jerry went kaboom and went and got him because now maybe it will break the ice. Now maybe it will light a fire under Dak and his new agent, and they will compromise just a little bit out of fear of they might be out on the street if they don't. So way to go, Jerry. You've won the offseason. I love you, man.
Yeah, that's all you won in the offseason. Good thing they don't pass out Lombardis for winning the offseason. I believe it's twofold. We talked about this earlier, Skip. I do believe it gives them a quality backup, something they have not had under Dak tenure, except that first year. He took over for injured Tony Romo. Tony Romo got hurt. They had a nice quality backup if something were to happen to Dak. Well, since Tony Romo has retired and gone to the booth, they have not. Maybe Kittner was there 1 year, Skip. Maybe Kittner was there 1 year. Memory serves me correct. But here's the thing, Skip. Jerry Jones stars. The difference between this star and the other stars, Michael Irvin, Dez Bryant, and Zeke Elliott, what do they all have in common, Skip? They all at some point in time needed Jerry Jones. Truth be told, let's go ahead and put it out there, Skip Bayless. All of them at one point in time needed Jerry Jones. Dak Prescott says, I have not needed Jerry Jones. I've kept myself on the straight and narrow. Now, as a quarterback, as I said, I can't remember. Now, I've been around the NFL since 1990. Followed it a long time. Covered it the last 15, 20 years. Skip, I cannot remember the time a quarterback as accomplished as Dak, with no injury history, no off-field check mark flags, 26, 27 years of age, have to threaten to hold out to get his money? Now, Skip Bayless always tells you, it's not about what you've done, it's about what you can do. Skip, Jerry, Stephen Jones have said, we believe Dak Prescott is a franchise quarterback and can win multiple Super Bowls. How much is multiple Super Bowls worth? That's the question, Skip. If you believe he can, $40 million is a drop in the bucket. Name the team. There's only a handful of teams. Probably not the Bengals. They ain't gonna pay nobody money if you tell them they can win the Super Bowl. But most owners, if you say, you know what, you're gonna have to pay your quarterback next year $30 million, there's a greater chance that you'll win the Super Bowl than not. Would they do it? The majority of them would. So that's what's at stake for the Cowboys. Look, Skip, I love Andy Dalton as a backup, but I don't think Andy Dalton is better than Dak Prescott. And again, Skip, it's the position that he plays. It's not whether you're good. You don't have to be good. You have to play the right position. You need to be free. Dak was free. Skip, you don't even get to this situation. I'm shocked. I'm beyond shocked that they let it get to this situation. And you know what the franchise tag creates. It creates bad blood. It creates dissension. And Jerry and Steven have allowed this to happen. Now they want Dak to cave for a situation they created. Dak said, nah, I'm good. Do what you got to do. But I ain't going nowhere. I ain't signing nothing.
I got a question for you. What if Dak and his new agent are asking for beyond Patrick Mahomes' money, $40-odd million a year? Would you pay him that right now?
Skip, we don't know. You keep saying hypothetical. We don't know what my homeboy is asking for. All I need to, Skip, this is what I will say. Tell me how much of how much of his money is fully guaranteed. Because I believe there are a few sticking points. Maybe the tenure. Jerry wants 6 years. Dak wants somewhere between 4 and 5. But ultimately, Dak said, y'all gonna give me $80, $90, $100 million fully guaranteed? I'll sign a 6-year deal. But I'm not signing a 6-year deal when you're talking about giving me Jared Goff $50 million. That's not gonna happen.
Shannon, we're talking about all of it guaranteed. That's what Dak is asking for, $150 million guaranteed dollars. That's what we're talking about here. And again, I love Dak more than most people do. Most people don't like him. A lot of Cowboy fans don't love him. And yet, I don't love him so much that I say, yeah, wreck that salary cap for the next 5 years. Go ahead, give him ridiculous money. No, don't. That's why $3 million for Andy Dalton could save you $30 or $40 million on Dak and his demand right now.
Well, they didn't have a problem paying Tony Romo, making him the highest paid, and they didn't worry about wrecking the cap. Now, all of a sudden, Jerry Jones is concerned about the cap. And like you said, Jerry Jones knows how to manipulate, how to massage the cap. So manipulate, massage the cap, and give Dak his money. We want $35 million. We want $80 million fully guaranteed.
Says the man who thinks Dak is below average.
Don't do the massage thing again, Shannon. You distracted me so much with the way you said it like that.
No mercy.
Magic Johnson gave a detailed story about how dominant Michael Jordan could be on little to no sleep. Magic said, quote, this guy would play cards from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. and he would get 2 hours of sleep and have an 8 a.m. tea time, go play golf, take a 2-hour nap, and score 30 by halftime. This dude was just incredible. He is the GOAT. So, Shannon, do you like Magic's description of Michael Jordan?
Skip, some guys just have that ability. Some guys just, Skip, I don't know what it was. They had to go out every single night. They had to drink, come in a hangover. Skip, when I first got in the league, guys would go to their car and smoke to a break for a lunch break. But thankfully, that waned. But some guys just had that ability, Skip, to be able to do that. I was not one of those guys. I needed to be in my playbook. I needed to be in my room. I needed to get my rest. But some guys, Skip, I don't know how. I mean, there have been times, Skip, look, bro, you got to get in the shower because you cannot go into this meeting room smelling like that Because Mike going to lose his mind, and then he going to be looking at me crazy talking about how did I let this happen? And you a grown man. So, Skip, some guys just have that ability to be able to party, to drink, to do whatever, and still go out to perform at a high level. Now, to the degree that Michael Jordan, he might be the only guy that could ever do it to that level, to play cards from 11 to 5, to go play around the golf. And Skip, even though he's on a golf cart, he's not walking 18 holes. But just the fact, Skip, I remember every coach that I've ever played for, on Friday, the last thing they would say, get off your feet. Skip, we're not playing till Sunday. And this is Friday at 1 o'clock. Get off your feet. Michael Jordan is on his feet the day of a game that he's going to play later that night, about 7 or 8 hours, and he's going to play probably 40 of the 48 minutes. And for him to go able to go out and to play at that elite of a level just goes to show you just how exceptionally talented he was, how much God-given ability he had. I don't know how he did it, but there have been a few guys. You hear stories about LT and how he was able to perform at the level he was. Skip, some guys God just gave them abundance of talent, and they could just do it. Little old Shannon, I wasn't one of those guys.
So, quick points of order. Obviously, Lawrence Taylor had some drug issues. And to my knowledge, Michael, even in 98, the year I was around, had no drug issues and no alcohol issues at that point. So again, you want to think had he become the Joe Namath snake stabler of the National Basketball Association? No, it wasn't. It wasn't like that.
No,
it was. He had such a raging fire inside him to compete. He was addicted to competing that he couldn't turn it off. After practice, he had to go straight to the golf course, or he had to go straight to the card game, and he didn't want to just play until 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock. He wanted to play until 5 a.m., and if you got him down, he'd want to play longer, as Magic said. And then he'd sleep for a couple hours, and Magic was actually describing what was going on in Barcelona before the Olympics. So then he'd go play golf, and he'd take a quick nap, and he'd go score 30 against Ghana, somebody before halftime. But the point was, the point was that raging competitive fire ran so hot that I believe it did start to devour him. And I do believe that gambling associations did have a lot to do with why he was forced to take a sabbatical for 2 heart of his prime years at age 30 and 31 and go play baseball, AA, for the Birmingham team that was owned by the Bulls owner, who's obviously also the White Sox owner, Jerry Reinsdorf. But I believe he was encouraged to step away because he'd gotten too deep into gambling. But the point was that fire in him, remember, Magic also told the story in the documentary, they're playing cards the night before game 1 of the second finals of the first three-peat against Portland. And it's so late at night, and Magic said, hey, I got to go. I got to let you get some sleep here. And that's when Jordan told him, hey, I just want you to know, I got him tomorrow night. And he was talking about Clyde Drexler. Well, poor Clyde Drexler hadn't trash talked Michael Jordan at all. But once again, he was always fictionalizing these bogus rivalries because he thought some people were saying Clyde Drexler was better than him. And you know what he did in the first half of game 1? He made 6 threes and gives it this up and down the court looking at Magic like, I told you last night. I told you last night. So, again, the cigar smoking always bothered me when I was in Chicago because he was constantly smoking cigars, but it was the only way he knew to calm his rage was to smoke cigars off the floor. And again, do I think they're good for you? I do not. But Shannon, the other side of Michael was he was a supremely talented overachiever because the other thing he would do is Tim Grover, the great trainer of Michael Jordan, after every home game would go in the locker room and hold up fingers for Michael. Do you want to go at 6, 7, or 8? And he was talking about the Breakfast Club workout club that they had with Scottie Pippen and Ron Harper at Jordan's house before breakfast. And if Michael had played a so-so game, he might want to start at 6 a.m., maybe 7, maybe if he played well, started at 8. But he never missed a workout when I was there in 98, his last go-round with those Bulls, because he was in supreme shape, even though he smoked cigars. So don't underestimate. He wasn't letting himself go. He was still working as hard as ever, and there was no drug or alcohol issue, certainly that I was aware of.
Skip, one of the greatest athletes that I've ever been around was a guy named Simon Fletcher. He played with me in Denver my first 3 years. Simon would smoke probably 3 cigarettes, drink a fifth of Jack, and couldn't nobody beat him in wind sprints. He was an outside linebacker. He was the most, I'm talking about Skip, to what he could do after. I'm like, Fletch, how you do that? He's like, I don't know, I just do it. Skip, what Michael Jordan, Skip, when you say he had a competitive issue, see, B.J. Armstrong was describing it last night, Skip. He said, we played the game. Michael won the game. He said, he let us go out there and we do all this thing, and then when it came time to win, Michael says, okay, now it's my turn. Skip, Michael wanted your soul. The reason why, see, Skip, if he won all the money, the game was over. See, if he lost, he wanted to keep playing. Skip, he wanted your soul. I got all your money, and on the court, he wanted to take your soul. Yes, we won the game, but I dropped 50. That was his mindset, Skip. He wanted to break you mentally. Well, Skip, if you take all the people, everybody money at the card table, the guys are looking around like, damn, man, the dude, I mean, he worth 150 million, he worth 200 million, and he just took 100 grand off me. Well, he's in the basketball game, Skip. He's like, dude, why are you playing so hard? Okay, you won. You got 30. You winning. Nope, I want 40. I want 50. That was his mindset. He's trying to not only break you mentally, he's trying to break you emotionally and physically, Skip. That was he wanted to leave you in rape. He wanted to wreck shop. He wanted to be like Sherman going through Atlanta during the Civil War.
He did. Yep. And remember what Dennis Rodman said in last week's Last Dance episode about him? He said, I was great during games. My problem was, what do I do with myself after games? I believe in a very different way. That was Michael's problem. I can't turn off my competitive fire. I got to do this and I got to do that. And I got to compete. And I got to gamble to make the stakes high enough to entertain myself and keep me alive off the court.
Yep.
There was just so much from all these episodes. And guys, we also saw an incredibly touching interview with the late Kobe Bryant. He spoke about his special relationship and bond with Michael Jordan. We will discuss it next.
No mercy.
Kobe Bryant faced off against Michael Jordan in the 1998 All-Star Game during episode 5 of The Last Dance. And in a more recent interview in the documentary, Kobe said Jordan was like an older brother to him. He also said, quote, what you got from me is from him. So Shannon, what do you make of the Kobe quotes and the interview that we saw with him from The Last Dance?
Skip, after watching that, listening to Jordan talk, you know why Jordan liked Kobe so much? Because he saw himself in Kobe. The very thing that he was talking about Kobe in the dressing locker room, Skip, before the All-Star game, that's what everybody said about him. He wants to make everything a one-on-one game. He ain't looking to pass the ball. He ain't looking to do anything but go one-on-one and score and light you up. That's why George's like, that's me. I'm looking at myself in the mirror, Skip, 14 years ago. That's why he loved Kobe. And Skip, like I said, think about it, Skip. Michael Jordan is the stars of stars, and he's different. And there have been great players, but he was different. And Kobe was not smart enough to know, like, yeah, I'm talking to Michael Jordan. Okay, yeah, bro, hey, check this out. Let me ask you something. How you know where the guy is? And Kobe's probably thinking, well, you need to feel his upper body. And Michael said, no, you feel it with your legs. You feel his body with his legs, and that tells you what you need to do and where you need to go. He's like, oh. And then Michael said something that I don't know if he's ever told anybody, player before or after. If you need anything, hit me up. Okay. I guess he didn't know Kobe. Kobe took him literally like, was going to hit him up, Skip, and kept hitting him up and kept hitting him up. And Michael like, man, this dude became a nuisance. I'm like, bro, it's 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. Can you get some sleep and leave me alone? But he took the time. And Kobe became what he became because, Skip, when I was growing up, I wanted to be just like my brother. I got the same pair of jeans. I tried to be, whatever. He had a shirt. He used to, one of his favorite players, Skip, was Bobby Dandridge. Played with the Bullets. They used to call him Mr. Clutch. Well, Skip, I went and got me a shirt, had Mr. Clutch put on the back in lowercase letters because I wanted to be just like my brother. Kobe Bryant wanted to be just like Michael Jordan. He mimicked. The only thing that he didn't do, Skip, he thought that would be a bit going too far, was take the number 23. But Skip, the way he walked, the arm brand up on his elbow, that knee sleeve rolled down over his calf, the baggy shorts, the way he walked, have his tongue out of his mouth, everything was a carbon copy of what Michael Jordan was. And that's what Kobe Bryant became. And that's why people say the closest thing we've ever seen to Michael Jordan is when Kobe beat Bryant. And it is very, very true.
And I very, very much agree. The reason that I have such respect for the Michael-Kobe relationship is, even in my year in Chicago covering those Last Dance Bulls, I was not aware how close Michael and Kobe were becoming. I didn't see it. I didn't hear about it over the next 5, 6, 8 years. And not until Kobe passed, not until the memorial hit us all and was so bittersweet for everyone to have to live through, especially Michael Jeffrey Jordan, who cried up there in ways, showed emotion like he'd never shown in public before. I didn't appreciate just how deep the bond had become between Kobe and Michael. And I read a quote last night from Magic Johnson, and I'm going to read just a part of it because he said, Kobe didn't have a lot of friends, but he really had a good friend in Michael. It almost came across like that was the only real friend that he had. He said, Magic said, I think they could go places in conversations that nobody else could go to with Kobe or Michael, where they understood the greatness of each other and could go there. And Magic concluded, Kobe knew that Michael really and truly cared about him, and Kobe definitely cared that much about Michael, which is why when they talked about big brother, little brother, and when Kobe said, I wouldn't be here without him, I wouldn't have 5 championships without his guidance, man, it stunned me. It gives me chills just to talk about it now, where the reverence, the awe for each other, the deep connection at a level none of us can ever know between those two greats was chilling to me last night when I saw the Kobe quotes, because they were obviously, he did the interview before he passed, obviously. So it was maybe one of the last interviews that he did before he passed. And I appreciate it so much. And I don't want to dwell on this, but I know we had LeBron with his Instagram post and Big Brother, and I got you, and I'm going to carry on for you. I got your back. I'm going to keep it going. And LeBron concluded, please give me the strength from above, from the heavens above, and watch over me. I got us here. And I just don't think LeBron's connection with Kobe was anything like this Kobe-Michael. I know that LeBron and Kobe had gotten closer near the end, maybe, but it wasn't anything like the depth of this one. This was true. This was Michael, who was threatened by any and everybody, even Clyde Drexler, as we saw last night, saying, okay, he could be me. You know what? I'm going to honor him by putting my arm around him, but I'm going to do it quietly. I'm going to do it off camera. Right. I'm not going to publicize it. I'm not even going to talk about it. Kobe didn't talk about it. They seem to have some rivalry because they'd sort of trash talk each other. But the depth of this that I saw last night was a beautiful thing to watch.
It was, Skip. And you know, Skip, I think the thing is for those two, someone that's been in a very similar situation, because when you think about it, all those moves, Kobe had to get them from somewhere. Yeah, you can study, but at some point in time, you got to go meet the master. You have to go and talk to him and feel and have him show you. Skip, you remember when after they lost in 2011, LeBron went and worked out with Akeem Olajuwon because he wanted to understand the footwork in the post and how he was going to be able to dip under, get to the basket, shoot that fadeaway, that turnaround that he made, that he's gotten very proficient at. Well, Michael Jordan, at some point in time, he and Kobe had to have a conversation. Kobe, they had to have met up and worked on it. Skip, it's funny that he was in the locker room at the All-Star game, and Jordan said, that little Laker boy go take everybody one-on-one. Skip, that's Michael. That's Michael, Skip, at the 85 All-Star game, because that Isaiah and Bird, they froze him out because they said, that little bull boy, he going to take everybody one-on-one, and we not going to pass him the ball.
That's true.
He saw himself. It's almost when he's looking at Kobe, he's looking at his reflection in the mirror. That's what he saw. And then he saw that, because Skip, here's a 19-year-old that's not afraid to take on Michael, who was the best player in the game at that time. I'm not afraid of you. Everybody else was in awe and in reverence. Yeah, I'm going to respect you. I know who you are. I know what you represent, but come get these buckets. And that's how Kobe approached it. And so from that point on, that's why Kobe went at everybody. He said, if I can go at that guy, and Skip, you remember the last time that he faced Michael, he dropped double nickels on him. He said, the only way I can know how to show Michael Jordan respect was to do that. Skip, I mean, it was so good to see. Go ahead, Skip.
Yeah, well, again, as Kobe said last night, in that first All-Star game, all that anybody really knew of him, those guys in the other locker room, I'm the guy who shot all those air balls. And he did in his first playoff series. Remember, he just shooting air balls like crazy. And I think he won over Jordan because it didn't bother him a bit. He came right back firing the next year and started to turn into Kobe Bryant.
Right. Skip, but if I'm not mistaken, I don't even know if Kobe was a starter. He got voted into the starter. He got voted into the All-Star game as a reserve player. That just goes to show you what they thought of him and knew what was coming. But it was unbelievable to hear Jordan talk about Kobe and to hear Kobe talk about how and what a special relationship that he had with Jordan.
It really was. And that quote from Kobe, what you got from me was from him. And that's how I'm going to remember that episode and that interview.
No mercy.
Welcome back to Undisputed. Guys, I do have some somber news to report this morning. The NFL's all-time winningest head coach, Don Shula, passed away this morning at the age of 90. And Shula was the head coach in Miami during that 1972 season, the only team to ever go undefeated. And Skip, I know you spent a little time with Coach Shula. What is your reaction to the news?
Yeah, Jenny, straight out of Vanderbilt, 1974. I went to the Miami Herald, so I was around the 74 and 75 Dolphins. And Don Shula was tough. He could be a little hard to get along with for the media. But I watched how the team reacted to him, and Don Shula came off to me as having a big heart, and he was truly beloved by those players in ways that a lot of great coaches are not beloved by their players. Witness some of the coaches today.
Skip, he was my first Pro Bowl. Coach Shula was my coach at the Pro Bowl. And as you mentioned, he was tough. We practiced. We got in practices that I didn't think that the Pro Bowl, from what I had heard, the Pro Bowl was like. But that was really my only dealings with him. But every time that I would see him at a function, be it at the Super Bowl, the Hall of Fame, he was always, hey, Shannon, how you doing? You're doing a great job. So my thoughts and prayers go out to his family, friends, and the Miami Dolphins organization.
Don Shula did so much for the game, and you said it best, both of you guys. We're thinking about their family, and we appreciate those words from both of you guys. I do want to go back to the Cowboys right now and talk a little bit more about CeeDee Lamb, because now Michael Irvin is giving his blessing to CeeDee Lamb, who will wear Irvin's number 88 this season. Irvin said that to wear that number, you have to be what he calls a, quote, true bred, which means born bled and bred right here in the Dallas Cowboys. So, Shannon, do you agree with what Irvin is saying here?
No, because it appears to be he's wearing this number because Jerry Jones' best friend wore 88 in college. Michael Irvin selected that number, Skip. The former owner, I think his name is Blum Bright, if I'm not mistaken. Mr. Bright was the owner of the Dallas Cowboys when Michael Irvin was selected. He didn't say, Michael, I want you to wear this number because Drew Pearson wore it and all the great receivers. He was a great receiver, and I want you to wear it. That's not what Jerry said. Jerry didn't say, well, Dez, I want you to wear 88 because all the greats wear it. And it reminds me of my former teammate, Lamb, that I played with at Arkansas. That's not how it happens, Skip. If CeeDee Lamb says, I want to wear that number because 88 seems to represent all the great receivers that's played for the Cowboys, Skip, I got no problem with that. But he said he wanted to wear the number 10, and it was Jerry, whether it was explicit or implicitly implied that he wanted him to wear that number in honor of Jerry's former teammate, Jerry's friend. Yep. He didn't choose that number of his own volition. So no. Got no problem. And I don't think it's Skip, it's going to be more pressure. CeeDee Lamb has enough pressure. He was the 17th pick in the first round. There's expectations. There's pressure that comes along with being selected. If he's what they believe he is, the numbers should not change anything, Skip. Tom Brady could be Tom Brady whether he wore number 12, 19, 17, or 6. Numbers don't make players. All I'm saying is CeeDee Lamb should have been afforded the right, like every other player that comes into the NFL, to be able to select a number of their choosing. And I don't believe he had that. I believe Jerry put undue pressure on this young man to take that number in order to honor Jerry's former teammate.
And obviously, CeeDee Lamb had already tweeted that he had chosen to wear number 10 in honor of sort of his idol as he came up through high school, DeAndre Hopkins, then in Houston. CeeDee went to a high school in the Houston area. Now, obviously, DeAndre is with the Arizona Cardinals. But the point is here, one sort of cool thing about the Dallas Cowboys, Shannon, is they don't retire numbers. Okay, that's cool, but the downside of that is sometimes numbers take on their own lives and they become legacy numbers. They're not yet retired. 88 is the legacy number in Cowboy Nation. It's the most hallowed, the most revered, because Drew Pearson should be in the Hall of Fame. He made many of the greatest catches in Cowboy history, including the original Hail Mary. And then we know what Michael Irvin did. I've made the case he's the greatest receiver ever. He's in the Hall of Fame along with you. And Dez Bryant had a Hall of Fame stretch for 4 years up through 2014 when I thought he was the best receiver in football. So here we go, 88, 88, 88, and here we go again. And now Michael Irvin is blessing CeeDee publicly, saying he is a true bred and that I love this kid. Well, Shannon, it would be like you taking one of the tight ends in this past draft, and it wasn't a great tight end draft, but that Adam Troutman that New Orleans traded up to get, I think he's going to be pretty good. Everything I read about him, he could be the steal of the draft at the tight end position. What if Shannon Sharp had tweeted, I bless that kid. He's going to wind up in the Hall of Fame. Well, that wouldn't be fair because maybe he will, maybe he won't, but you don't want to put that on him right now. And I feel like that CeeDee is already shooed into the Hall of Fame because Michael is blessing him, saying he's a true bred. He hasn't played a snap yet in this league. Completely unfair. You can't do that. I quoted obviously the Talladega Nights line the other day from Michael Clark Duncan. Don't you put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby. Well, don't you put that evil on CeeDee before he's even played a snap in the league. It's not fair, and he didn't ask for it, and now he's got to literally wear the expectation of living up to the Cowboy draft board, which had him, as we all know now, he was 6th on their draft board, and he fell to them at 17.
Right. Skip, it would be the equivalent. Let's just say for the sake of argument, Kansas City. Okay, we know Tony, he wore 87. And now all of a sudden Kelsey comes in and Mr. Lamar Hunt says, you know what? You remind me a lot of Tony Gonzalez. I want you to take 88 and wear that number because that's a special. What? No, I want my own number. He got one number below 88. Skip, the guy should be allowed to have his own number. I get it, Jerry. Jerry Lamb meant a lot to you. He played with you. He was your teammate. He was a confidant of yours. But the meaning that he has to you is not the same meaning it has to CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb should have been afforded the opportunity to get number 10 because that's the number he wanted to wear to show his appreciation for DeAndre Hopkins. Not you, Jerry. And therein lies the problem. Jerry wanted it to be about him. See, Skip, that is about Jerry. Now, here them, I done worked my tail off. Did what I was supposed to do in high school, kept good grades, got to college, played well enough, and now, Skip, yes, sir. I'm going to get this thing. I'm going to be number 10, just like DeAndre Hopkins. I'm going to go out there and ball to DeAndre Hopkins. And the owner says, an ex-teammate of mine, who's a good friend of mine in college, he wore number 88, had the same last name as you, who's a confidant. I want you to wear 88. Huh? No, Skip, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Jerry.
I thought the most wisdom was actually tweeted by one Des Bryant, who simply said to CeeDee, be you, capital, all Y-O-U capitalized. Be you.
Yes.
Don't be us. Don't be the past. Just be you. Blaze your own trail.
Right.
I agree. Well,
but that's Jerry, though, Skip.
So in the end...
Go ahead.
Go ahead. So in the end...
No, I was just going to say...
This was Jerry's own... it was Jerry's only misstep of the whole offseason because he's won the offseason with Mike McCarthy and the free agent signings and Amari, and he won the draft, and he's done everything right. Andy Dalton was a home run, and yet he has one little misstep with CeeDee that I still think CeeDee can overcome.
Skip, sometimes things doesn't need to be explicitly said to be implicitly implied. And that's what we have here. But see, he didn't imply it, Skip. He said it. Jerry said I wanted to wear number 88 because my good friend Jerry Lamb was 88, who I played college with, and he was a great friend of mine to today. So this wasn't implicit. This was explicit. It was verbalized. He said it.
He did.
CeeDee's going to be just fine, whatever number he was to wear. I am not worried, Skip. I am so excited to see him in a Cowboys jersey.
No mercy.
Michael Jordan wore his Air Jordan 1s for his final regular season game as a Bull at Madison Square Garden. MJ admitted that innovation had come a long way since his first shoe in the 80s to what they currently had in 98. And he also said by the end of the game, his socks were soaked in blood from the shoes. Crazy thought. I loved the backstory about how he started things off with Nike, all thanks to his mom. But Shannon, are you surprised that MJ admitted just how painful it was to play in those shoes?
No, because what MJ didn't realize, Skip, as we age, our feet grow. So Jordan probably started off at a size 13, and then by the time he got to 98, he was a size 14. But he only had that pair, the original pair, in a size 13. So he had to try to squeeze Texas and Georgia. And that's what happened, Skip Bayless. And you're right. The innovation, you remember, Skip, when the Chuck Taylors, they had no cushioning. And then all of a sudden, you got shoes with cushioning. Like, I can't believe I played all these years in these terrible shoes. And that's what Mike said, because if I'm not mistaken, Skip, he was talking about, at the time, the other shoe he was talking about innovation was the Jordan 13, if my memory serves me correct. But the shoe has come a long way. And I'm not surprised because that was a small shoe and it had no cushioning like the shoes of today had.
Agreed. He played in the 13s in 98, and then he went to the 14s for the finals against Utah, the last shot finals. And those shoes were like Rolls Royces, playing in Rolls Royces compared to the ones. Shannon, the ones have always been my favorite. I've got 6 or 8 pair of them. I've got high tops. I got low tops. The classic ones, I got them on right now, the red, white with the big black swoosh. They're just, I love the statement they make, the look of them. But listen, if I even walk around in them for 4 or 5 hours in one day, my feet start to hurt because they're hard on your feet. They feel like they got rock bottoms in them. There's no cushioning. There's no real support to them. So I get it that he tried to wear them. He was going to take them off at halftime, but he said he was so hot that he decided, I can't take these shoes off. I'll take the bloody blisters or whatever. So to me, I still can't believe he played and did as well as he did in the ones, because they're a little bit of a handicap to actually play basketball in. And again, love the look, love the statement, don't love the functionality of them is just so bad.
Skip, think about this. Women, you would know what I'm talking about. When you wear heels and they start to hurt at the end of the night and you take them off, imagine him playing a basketball game, Skip, having to stop, cut, plant, jump, and you have to do that for 40 minutes because that's what he was asking to do. But Skip, they told a story. David Falk said when they signed with Nike, they were hoping to do $3 million over 3 years in that shoe sale. They did $126 million in the first year. They say, we got something. We own something with this guy. It was special. That's an unbelievable story. I had that shoe, Skip, but you're right. There's nothing. It's like you're walking on pavement.
Yep. It's got to be the shoes.
Love the look. I love Skip is wearing a pair right now. I may need to order one. All right, guys, good stuff. That is it for Undisputed today. We'll be back same time tomorrow, 9:30 a.m. Eastern. Have a good day, guys.